Another great feature from the ES6 are template literals. And template literals simplify the way we'll have to work with a strings in the JavaScript. So let's say that I have three variables: name, last name, and age. And two of them are strings, and one of them is going to be the number. And if I would want to concatenate them in one variable, if I'm writing a text, then I'm going to have to get out of the text and use the plus sign. If I would want to use a variable, so let's say in our case, this is going to be the name. If I would want the space in between the variables, then I would need another empty quotation mark. So quotation marks and empty space in between. And also I would need to make sure that I'm using the opposite of the quotation marks or a backspace in order to write, let's say, I am. Because as you notice, if I'm going to use the same quotation marks, JavaScript is going to be confused whether I'm trying to access the string or I'm trying to exit the string. So there has to be an easier way, and template literals offers that. So let me just comment out first a variable, and then let's look at how we can write this much more simpler way. So again, let me go back, let me comment this out, and let's create another variable with a name of phrase. So const phrase. And then if you would want to use a template literals, we would need to press a backtick. Now the backtick is going to be located just above your tab key. And now we can just write one long string. So let's say again, we can write my full name is, and instead of exiting the string, I can just access the variable by using a $sign and then the curly braces. So now I can write whatever variable I would want over here. So here I can just say name. And then let's say if you would want a last name, you see that we don't need to add any kind of plus sign. Again, we can just access the variable, and here would be the last name. And if you'll notice, then if we would want to create some space in between them, I can just do it by pressing a space bar. I don't need to, again, use the empty quotation mark or anything like that. So then we have a last name, and then over here we can write and I am. And since I'm using the template literals with a backticks, I don't need to worry what kind of quotation mark I'm using, whether that would be single or a double. And again, we're going to be accessing the age, so we can just say age. So this would be the name of the variable. And here we're going to write years old. And as you can see, this is a much more easier way how to work with the strings. So if I'm going to save it, it says last name is not defined. So let's figure out, obviously I didn't name the variable correctly. So now when I have named the variable correctly, I have again the same thing in a console log. However, this was much more easier to write. Now also let me show you an example whenever we're working with a DOM. Because again, we'll have a div. Now div is going to use the document create element. So we're creating element div. And we would want to use the inner HTML property where we would want to insert the paragraphs. And again, the paragraph will going to hold the name and over here the last name. And as you notice, if I want to use a HTML tags, again, I need to use the quotation marks. Now everything is working correctly. I still have the name and the last name within the paragraph. However, again, this can get really messy really fast. So let me show you how we can work with a template strings in order to make this easier. So again, let me comment out the div inner HTML, and let's write the same thing with a template string. So we're going to have a div, then we're going to have inner HTML, and we're going to set it equal. And now we're going to use the backticks again. Now, once we have the backticks, I can just write whatever tag I would want over here. So since I'm looking for a paragraph, I can write paragraph. But you know what? Let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's say heading 1. So the heading 1 is going to be the name. And if we would want to access the name, again, we would want to do the same thing like we did before with a $sign and the curly braces. So let's do a name. So now we'd want to access the name. And let's just write some text over here. So my name is, and over here, this is going to be the name. And the easy thing is that I can just copy and paste these within a template strings. So within the backticks, I don't need to worry about whether I'm using the correct plus sign over here or not. As I'm working within this backticks, I can copy and paste however I would want my HTML tags. So let's say here, let's change it to paragraph. And you know what? Or no, let's do a heading 3. So name is going to be with a heading 1. The last name is going to be with a heading 3. So last name is, and now we need to access the different variable. So this would be the last name. Then again, we can just copy and paste it. Now this would be the age. My age is my age. And let's do this one as a heading 6, just to show you that we can work with any HTML tag. And here let's write age. So the variable name is going to be the age. And the last one is going to be the phrase. So let's just copy and paste it. Let's change this one to paragraph, and also the end tag with the paragraph. And let's access a different variable, which is going to be the phrase. And now let's see what we have. So if we're going to use a phrase, and if I'm going to have this in the document, see that I have my name is Bob, my last name is Sanders, and age is 25. And as you can see, again, this is going to be way more easier to work with a strings than instead of using the concatenation, where we have to use the plus signs and then exit or enter the string. So therefore, the template literals are a really good feature from the ES6.